The First World War lasted 5 years from 1914 to 1918, and it's really hard to describe or sum it up in a matter of few minutes. After all, it was an event of immense significance, and its repercussions were felt throughout the 20th century or even into the 21st century. But I'll try my best to explain all these events and how the war actually happened. And for that, I'm going to take help from a really short book. I'm thinking this has to be one of the shortest books available. It's called World War I, A History from Beginning to End. It's written by Henry Freeman, and it's just around 50 pages long. So if you get time, you can read this, or otherwise you can continue listening. So what was happening around that time before the World War began, or even before the 20th century? New nations were arising. Europe was in some kind of state of conflict, and a great number of wars were being fought to secure land, to expand borders, and to form new countries. By the late 19th century, Germany was still in its infancy, trying to grow, trying to expand itself. And so was the case with many other European nations, which ultimately led to two kind of coalitions. In one side, there was this alliance, also known as Triple Alliance of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Kingdom of Italy. That was one side, and the other team was Anglo-Russian agreement, where United Kingdom, Russia, and France were together. So while these two sides were in some kind of agreement, which was known as the Triple Alliance Agreement, and it was renewed in 1887, 1907, and 1912, but there were problems still going on. For example, in 1902, Italy made a secret pact with France, promising to remain neutral if Germany provoked France. This kind of flimsy agreement of the Triple Alliance had started to falter. And there was another factor at play apart from Germany's expansion ambitions. Italy saw itself as an isolated nation. It had those ambitions of becoming an empire and grab a lot of Baltic regions, Mediterranean, and Africa. So they had their own conflicts with France. On the other side, if France were to be attacked, Russia was supposed to interfere and help it. So that's how it was going. And if we come to the first trigger which started the First World War, there is some dispute among historians, but the most agreed explanation is the one that took place on June 28, 1914, when Archduke of Austria-Hungary was assassinated. The assassin, Gavrilo Princip, was a member of a society called the Black Hand Society. It was a nationalist, ultra-nationalist rather, Serbian group. And although there is still not enough evidence that Serbian government was involved in the assassination, but at that time, Austria-Hungary declared a war on Serbia. At that point, Russia also began to mobilize its forces, and Germany was also aware that war in this situation with Russia was unavoidable. But then there was a catch also that if Russia were to be involved, there would be another attack from France onto the Germany. So on 1st of August, when Germany declared war on Russia, It started fighting wars on two fronts, the French front and the Russian front. Interestingly, Italy so far had remained neutral, citing that the purpose of that triple alliance was for defense, not for aggression. Germany, on the other hand, took help of Belgium in order to attack the French front. But Belgium, as per the Treaty of London, was not supposed to help any party. It was supposed to remain neutral, but it broke that pact and directly or indirectly entered into war. Then on 12th of August, Britain joins in, and Britain, along with France, they declare war on Austria-Hungary. It's worth noting that all these colonial nations which were fighting the First World War had a lot of colonies, such as India, so they were sending soldiers from these colonies to fight their own wars. At the same time, these colonial nations took the war to their colonies, and a lot of it was being fought in Africa, which otherwise had no role in this war. As the war continued, more countries joined in. Japan, for instance, had stayed true to its agreement with the British allies and had declared war on Germany. The Ottoman Empire had also played a role because it denied the ship route to Allied forces, and therefore they could not get to their colonies. And the year also saw the first use of airplanes in the theater of war. It was a really advanced technology and very vital tool and a deadly tool in military operations. So as we entered into 1915, we saw the new use of industrialized war. Many new machines, guns, weaponries, and even in some cases chemical attacks. Those methods were employed, and there was heavy losses on both sides. It's also worth mentioning that during this period, the Ottoman Empire began the annexation of around or over 1 million Armenians from its Turkish regions, which led to the Armenian genocide. The persecution had been going on for a long time, but at that point it just accelerated and resulted in a genocide. And by the middle of 1915, even Italy had betrayed its declaration of neutrality and attacked Austria-Hungary in what is known as the First Battle of Isonzo. The 1916 was probably the bloodiest year of this war, but still there seemed no end to the war. And then we go to 1917, as we all know, the year of Russian Revolution, and the Eastern Front was really collapsing. That should have been a good news for Germany, right? But then arrives the United States. But why did the America enter in this war where it had no business? Well, we shouldn't ask that question, as we have seen a lot of instances from the history, but at the same time Germany was getting over ambitious in its acts by attacking British Isles and sinking many merchant ships. So that was coming sooner or later. And once we had got there, we knew only one result was possible. And even when Germany tried all its aggressive options, United States was going to have an upper hand. So at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the guns fell silent on the Western Front. armistice had been declared, the brutal war was finally over. And many people hoped that they would not see any similar or anything close to it kind of World War situation again. But then, guess what happened?